delighted to be invited by PragatiE Vichaar Poetry Festival, which I think is a fantastic platform for cultivating, developing, and advocating the love for poetry. 21st March is celebrated as World Poetry Day. And I'm so happy that I wouldn't say there's a resurgence of poetry, but the fact that there is a full day dedicated to a literature form that is so evocative and so beautiful, such as poetry. I published my book, The Vast Empty. It's a collection of poems. It's available on Amazon. And one of the things that people told me was that really no one reads poetry. And I often wondered why. Because as a child and back in the days, and even as an adult, I've always enjoyed poems. I've always found poetry very meaningful. So it was a little disappointing and discouraging. But I said, you know what? The thoughts and words that I write have taken the form of poems, and it's not something that I planned or envisaged. It's just how it occurred, right? So I said, it doesn't matter if people don't read much poetry, but I still want to go ahead with writing and publishing poems. And I began to wonder why people don't really enjoy poetry, and I figured that a lot of people have been somewhat traumatized by having to mug up a lot of poems while they were young in school, and either it's kind of moved them to enjoy poetry or completely gone the reverse, where they shudder at the mere thought of mugging up and lots of poems which probably they couldn't relate to. So I'm always enchanted by poets who can actually connect deeply within you and talk very relevantly and speak to you. And for me, one of the biggest and my most admired poets is Rainer Maria Rilke. He's an Austrian poet who used to write in German, and I find that I've drawn a lot of inspiration from that. My book, The Vast Empty, has a collection of 65 poems, and a lot of them are deeply influenced and impacted by Eastern philosophy and mysticism. And today, what I want to do is read a selection of poems which, touch upon a lot of themes of meditation, of the search for yourself, and just finding peace and calm. Through these poems, I've kept them very simple, easy to understand, and hopefully easy to relate to as well. I do want people to get into rediscovering some lost part of themselves through poems and start to fall in love with poetry all over again. And for a lot of people who never liked poetry, maybe just reconnect and make it accessible to them and let them know that it doesn't have to be difficult. It doesn't have to be depressing. It doesn't have to be esoteric or incomprehensible. So that's the aim. And today I'm going to read a selection of poems. I hope you like some of them. I'm just going to give you a little bit of a brief on what these poems mean, if there is a context, etc. Right? I'll start with something which a lot of people have liked. And this poem is called Obsession. And those of you who might be following me on Being Turiya on Instagram, you'll see that I've read this poem out, but this is something which is one of my favorites. And I think it goes back to a time when all of us have, fallen in love, fallen out of love, and maybe in some idle time you're wondering, how life would have been if you had chosen to stay with the person that you loved or fell in love with. But it's also had other meaning. What if you had chosen a different path of life, right? A different city to live in or a different career. And we always wonder a lot about those missed opportunities and chances. So here goes. Obsession. How comfortably ensconced you are in my mind, my love, as constant as my breath and the beating of my heart. You are embedded in every waking thought, all of which weave themselves into a gossamer sheath that I gently draw over me every night, willing myself to dream of you. You and I, we travel deep in my dreams into a life we could have had with each other. But when I wake up, I wonder, would you still fill my mind the same way if you were here by my side? People asked me a lot of times, was it for a person or for something? And I said, it's your poem, you interpret it. These are for all the choices that we have made and the ones that we didn't make. Sometimes I believe that you are here, this is the life that has been chosen for you, you've chosen it, and make the best of it. Another poem that I'm going to read is called Wanderer. And again, it's about the constant running around we do, searching for something, right? And for all the restless people out there, and sometimes it's me as well, here's one for you. If you could be anywhere, where would you go? Would you stay there? How do you know? Nomads wander in search of food, shelter, or water. But you, what is it that you're after? The thing that you seek, do you know what it is? Or are you just enthralled by the idea of perpetual drift? Is it a person, place, or feeling? Tell me, my wanderer, what are you chasing? There is no anchor to weigh you down, nor a cage to contain you within. You were forever free and on your own, yet you are running always without getting to any place. Maybe the person you seek lies deep within. Maybe the place you want to go is not on a map but in your mind. And when the adventures end and there is no thrill, all you may want is for your mind to be still. Because whatever you are seeking, if you don't find it where you are, what you want will always be just that tiny bit too far. What you want will always be just that tiny bit too far. Maybe all the answers are within us. Maybe we already have everything that we need. Um, so that's something that I liked a lot. I'm going to now read something which, I'm often asked which is my favorite poem, and I just find it very difficult to choose one, and therefore it's always a struggle. So I'm going to read something called Death. I wake up from my dream incomplete. I left behind parts of me in my dream, like markers in the vast labyrinth stretching beyond into the ancient and into another realm. Knowing that sleep will bring me back to this exact same point to restart, to chart my life. So, is this how we die? Do we willfully disintegrate slowly and subtly, leaving behind parts of ourselves across space and time when the mind dissolves in sleep and when we travel in our dreams? I don't find these things morbid at all. I think it's quite a fascinating concept. What lies beyond? What is the meaning of life? How vast is the universe? I think a lot of someone asked me, why is there a sense of wandering with a lot of people who write poetry? And I always think that maybe it's derived from a sense of wandering, and that takes you into some kind of a very meandering path in your mind, exploring concepts and observing. And that's why it seems like a lot of loitering around, and I absolutely love that. Just letting your mind roam and focus on a few things and let it wander about. I think there's a lot of things that you contemplate and reflect when you're allowed that luxury. I'm going to now read something called Becoming. I don't think I need to give any explanation. You can interpret it any which way you want. Becoming. I was my body. I was my vanity. I was my beauty. I was my illusion. Then I became myself. I became my silence. I became my mind. I became my thought. I became my breath. And I escaped. I became the glisten of the dewdrop, the reflection on the water. I became the transparency of the dragonfly's wings and the rustle of the wind. I became the softness of a breath and the radiance of love. I became the kindness of the alms giver and the blessing of a beggar. I became the roughness of the stone and the power of water flowing around. I became the smoothness of the pebble, its cool touch against the skin. I became the dream of a sleeper and the vibrations of a string. I became day. I became night. I became everything. I became nothing. And now I'm the light. I'm also the void. I hope you like that. Let me see what else I can read for you. There is one which is called The Release. Let me find that. Oh, okay, let me find something else. But this one is also something, it's very difficult to figure out what I should be reading. Okay, hold on. This is called Floating. I float languidly down a river of dreams on a bed of thoughts woven into fantasies. I'm like Mercury, formless and silvery, breaking and merging with ease. At times I'm a thought, sometimes the dream. I weave in and out, trespassing, everywhere at once, but nowhere near thee. That I hope you liked as well. Okay, another one. This is called This Moment. I live in the moment, neither burdened by hope, nor anchored in memory, nor weighed down by judgment, just an observer of my unfolding destiny. Let every blink be a tiny death. Every day I'll die a million times and be reborn each time I open my eyes. Okay, let me see what else I can read. This one is a little longer and it's called Perfume. Okay. These were some of the earlier poems that I wrote. They had a more free verse, longer way of, longer form, more words. But it's still, this one is very dear to me. It's called Perfume. A strain of musing wafting from an open window on an early autumn evening, the mystic blue of the sky at dusk as it converges slowly into the inky black of night, the muted yellow glow from an upstairs window filled with hints of intimacy, evidence of everyday life. Yet they evoke a feeling of longing within you. A longing for what? For whom? You cannot define, let alone understand it. Perhaps it triggers a memory of languid summer afternoons spent in the arms of a beloved, or that moment when a stray word or a glance or a poem, was it stray, set a relationship down a new path. Maybe time has changed everything. Maybe there are no afternoons, perhaps no beloved, perhaps no love. Maybe that new path in the relationship took led to despair and desolation. Or maybe everything is still the same. The beloved is just older. The early thrill of relationship, now long burdened with domesticity and settled into a steady, deadening rhythm, everything tinted with sepia, with age experience, and the crushing realization of lost youth and of unfulfilled dreams. Those days and those moments were thrilling, like a newly opened bottle of perfume, heady and addictive. The allure of the fragrance captivating, just like that moment, and the complexity of the notes, much like those feelings. You breathed deeply the fragrance and committed it to memory. And yet, like all things committed, it gets lost in the vast and intricate filing system of the mind, like the precious treasures of the museum store. Too valuable to be discarded, but too much to be displayed. Always there, but rarely referenced. And now, as you pass by that window, and when you notice the sky, or hear that particular strain of music, the memory explodes from its cocoon and startles you with its vivacity and freshness, sharp and overwhelming, like the fragrance that floods the room when the perfume bottle is dropped and shatters itself into a million pieces. I hope it reminded you of something or brought back some forgotten memory. I'm just going to read maybe one more, and and I hope you like this one as well. This one is a little bit. It's called The Stars. I lie down to sleep, hoping that I will soon rise to wander amongst the stars, scattered across the vast skies. These stars, they hold my memories from eons before, from the time I wasn't born and beyond into the time after I die. These memories, they stretch into infinity. There is no end in sight. How long will my journey last? How long before I can finally sleep in the stars? All right, with that, I think we've covered a lot of poems. And like I said before, poetry is something which is really truly beautiful and deep, and it comes from a place of deep contemplation, inspiration, and observation. And I feel that you need to feel something really deeply. It can't be planned. You can't sit and say, I'm going to write a poem about XYZ. At least that's not what I have experienced. With novels, I think you can do that. You can say, this is the broad theme, these are the people, this is the story that you want, and it's very planned. This is the story that you want to share with the world. And these are the people, the protagonists who will do that. But with poems, what I've seen is it can occur to you anytime. Um, and could startle you with that thought, with that connection that you make between so many different beautiful things, people you see, things you hear, the strain of a music, or the particular shade of green on a leaf. All of these could inspire you. And when that moment of inspiration comes in, I think you have to drop everything and just, allow it to kind of float around you and settle into words, and capture the feelings that you are feeling at that moment and turn it into a poem. So I think it's very difficult to predict when a poem may occur, what form it might take, and sometimes it happens in a sudden in a flurry, or in almost animated fury, that you can write everything, and sometimes for days it's just there somewhere stuck in your mind and you're not able to bring it to life. So I think writing poetry is really tough. But when it happens and when you're able to write it, I would say nurture it, and let's hope that more people realize the beauty of poetry and the depth that is there, and the fact that it can take you onto a journey into yourself and really calm you and refresh you. So thank you very much for listening to this, and I wish you all a very happy Poetry Day. Thank you.